How did you find us? Martinez demanded sharply. She glanced nervously between us. They know where you are? They're coming. My pulse thundered deafeningly. Who are they? She swallowed hard, voice trembling. You don't understand. This isn't about Airbnb. This isn't just Peter. This is bigger. Much bigger. Explain, Martinez commanded. She hesitated, eyes filling with tears. They're watching all of us. You, me, everyone who tried to fight, and they're not going to stop. Outside, distant headlights flickered through the trees. They're here? Sasha whispered, eyes wide with terror. Martinez gripped his gun tightly, expression grim. Then we make a stand. I stood frozen, terror squeezing my throat as car doors slammed shut outside. Footsteps crunching rapidly toward the cabin. We weren't running anymore. They'd found us. And now we had no choice but to fight. Part 5? No. Way out. The cabin walls suddenly felt paper-thin as headlights flashed through the dusty windows, splashing ominous beams of white light across our faces. My breath came in ragged gasps, my heart slamming violently against my ribcage. They're here, Sasha repeated, eyes wide, panic etched deeply across her face. We can't fight them. There are too many. Officer Martinez gripped his gun, knuckles whitening around the handle. We don't have another choice, he growled softly. Barricade the door quickly. I rushed to the nearest heavy object, an antique dresser, and pushed desperately against it. Martinez and Sasha joined me, sliding furniture toward doors and windows, attempting to block the imminent assault. But the cabin was flimsy, aging wood barely holding together against the heavy, oppressive night outside. Is there another exit? Martinez demanded urgently. Sasha shook her head. Just a back window too small. Martinez cursed under his breath, eyes scanning the room wildly. Then we have to stand our ground. Silence fell as we waited, every muscle coiled tight. I clutched the burner phone in my trembling hands, my mind racing. I had never imagined something like this, being hunted, cornered, helpless. The sound of footsteps grew louder. Multiple sets crunching over gravel, voices murmuring indistinctly outside. Then a chilling silence descended. I jumped violently. As the burner phone vibrated again, screen illuminating the darkened room. Martinez looked sharply at me, eyes narrowing in suspicion. It's them, I whispered, my voice trembling. I held up the phone for Martinez and Sasha to see. You can still end this peacefully. Let us in, Martinez snorted bitterly. Peacefully? After everything they've done? Sasha backed away, her eyes huge in the dim glow. They're bluffing. They won't stop until they've silenced us. Who are these people? I hissed desperately, tears of frustration blurring my vision. Why us? Martinez shook his head slowly. Whoever they are, they're organized, powerful, and they clearly think we know too much. Sasha took a shaky breath. I never meant to get anyone else involved. I'm sorry. Before I could respond, a deafening crash splintered the front door, wood exploding inward. We stumbled back, shielding our faces from flying debris. Through the ruined entrance stepped Peter, flanked by several figures in dark clothing, faces hidden behind masks. Cold, detached, and utterly in control, Peter's eyes locked onto mine, glittering with amusement and contempt. You shouldn't have run, he said softly, voice smooth and terrifyingly calm. Now you've made things complicated. Martinez leveled, his weapon steadying his aim. Don't move, he shouted firmly. Stay right where you are. Peter didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled a slow, chilling smile. Officer Martinez, he drawled softly. We've been expecting you. Martinez stiffened, eyes narrowing sharply. Who are you working for? Peter chuckled softly, nodding toward his masked associates. You're asking the wrong questions. It doesn't matter who I work for, only that you're in our way. Martinez tightened his grip. Don't take another step, he warned, voice trembling. With barely suppressed rage, Peter ignored him, stepping confidently into the room. The masked figures followed silently, moving smoothly around him, forming a circle, I pressed closer to Sasha, our backs hitting the wall behind us. My breath came. In rapid, terrified gasp, Peter studied us coldly. We gave you every chance to walk away, he said softly. We would have let you leave alive, intact. But you couldn't stop digging. Sasha trembled violently beside me, her voice cracking. Just leave us alone. We won't say anything. Peter sighed dramatically. Too late for promises. You've already said too much. Martinez raised his voice, defiant. You can't silence everyone. People will find out. Peter smiled coldly. People always think they'll be the exception, until they're not. He turned toward me, eyes piercing. You shouldn't have found that camera. None of this would have happened. My stomach twisted sharply. You're blaming me? I whispered, voice breaking. No, Peter said softly, almost gently. I'm congratulating you. Very few people catch us. Martinez adjusted his aim sharply. Enough talking? Back away now? Peter's expression hardened instantly, eyes narrowing. Your little hero act won't change anything, officer. Suddenly, one masked figure lunged forward, faster than I could comprehend, knocking Martinez's gun from his grip. It clattered uselessly. Across the floor. Grab them, Peter ordered sharply. Chaos erupted. Sasha screamed as figures surged forward. I struggled violently as powerful arms closed around me, dragging me roughly toward the broken doorway. Let go. I screamed, thrashing, desperately. But their grip was iron-tight, unyielding. I caught sight of Martinez, pinned to the ground, shouting angrily, unable to fight off his attackers. Sasha was being dragged, kicking and sobbing hysterically, toward the waiting van outside. I felt myself being pulled toward the darkness beyond the cabin, heart hammering painfully. The cold night air stung my skin, reality closing in tightly. Please, I begged desperately. Just let us go. Peter stepped closer, eyes calm, almost sympathetic. This could have ended differently, he murmured softly. But you made your choice. I struggled violently again, terror flooding my senses. What are you going to do to us? Peter smiled chillingly. Nothing you haven't already imagined. Suddenly, red and blue lights flashed through the trees, sirens piercing the night air. Peter's head snapped around sharply, eyes narrowing. Go, he shouted to his masked associates. They immediately scattered, leaving Martinez and Sasha gasping. Weakly on the ground, the arms around me vanished instantly, dropping me roughly to the dirt. I lay shaking, too stunned to move, as Peter leaned down quickly. This isn't over, he whispered fiercely into my ear. No matter where you go, we'll find you. Then he vanished into the shadows, disappearing silently as multiple police cars screeched to a halt outside the cabin, officers flooding toward us, guns drawn. Are you okay? A young officer asked urgently, kneeling beside me. What happened? Here. I stared at him blankly, numbness spreading rapidly through my body. How could I explain any of this? Martinez stumbled toward me, clutching his side painfully, eyes wild with adrenaline. They got away, he gasped, voice ragged with frustration. They knew exactly what they were doing. Who? The officer demanded sharply. Martinez shook his head slowly, expression haunted. We still don't know. Sasha collapsed weakly beside us, sobbing uncontrollably. They're never going to stop, she whispered, voice broken. We're never going to. Be safe. The officers quickly secured the area, searching fruitlessly for any sign of our attackers. But Peter and his associates had vanished completely, leaving only dread and confusion behind. The detective from earlier arrived, looking furious, yet helpless. I'm so sorry, he muttered darkly, clearly shaken. We had no idea the extent of this. You need to find them, I whispered desperately, still trembling violently. They'll just keep coming. He nodded grimly. We'll do everything we can. But as dawn slowly brightened the horizon, exhaustion and hopelessness consumed me. Martinez and Sasha sat silently beside me, equally broken. Eventually, officers transported us back to the city, escorting us carefully to a high-security hotel. Armed guards stood vigilantly outside. Promising safety, I no longer believed possible as I sank onto the hotel bed, utterly defeated. The burner phone buzzed yet again, hand shaking. I reluctantly checked the screen. Did you really think this would end differently? I threw the phone violently across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. Pieces scattering across the carpet, because I knew the message was right. This was never going to stop. Peter and his network were still out there, waiting, planning. And now, even with police involvement, they were stronger than ever. We were trapped, hunted, with nowhere left to hide. And the worst part was, I still had no idea who was behind it all. Or what they ultimately wanted from us. Part 6. Buried secrets. Sunrise streamed through the hotel curtains. But its warmth did nothing to thaw the icy. Dread locked in my chest. I hadn't slept. Each shadow, every noise had jolted me awake. Martinez sat quietly in the corner, his eyes hollow with fatigue, watching over Sasha and me as we drifted in and out of troubled rest. A knock at the door snapped us all to attention, adrenaline surging anew. Martinez moved cautiously to open it, gun drawn discreetly behind his back. The detective from last night stood in the hallway, looking haggard, eyes darkly circled from exhaustion. "May I come in?" he asked carefully. Martinez nodded warily, stepping aside. The detective closed the door gently behind him, surveying the three of us with a heavy sigh. "We've been compromised," he said grimly, cutting straight to the point. "The attackers last night, someone in our own department, is helping them." Sasha whimpered softly, burying her face in her hands. My stomach turned sharply. "Who?" I asked faintly. "We don't know," the detective admitted bitterly. "But we're running internal investigations now. Until we find the mole, no one can be trusted." Martinez shook his head slowly, expression bleak. "Then what happens to us?" The detective hesitated, clearly uneasy. "Officially, we have to remove police protection. If someone in the department is compromised, your safety is at greater risk staying under a guard." "So we're just on our own?" Sasha demanded, voice trembling with anger and fear. "Unofficially," the detective continued carefully, "I've arranged something. Someone I trust implicitly, completely outside the system." "Who?" Martinez asked sharply, suspicion thickening his tone. "Former FBI," the detective said firmly. "Specialized in cyber threats and human trafficking. Retired early, off-grid now, and extremely careful. Do you trust him?" I whispered hesitantly. The detective met my gaze directly. "With my life." We packed hastily, silent and tense. An hour later, an unmarked vehicle arrived at the hotel, a sleek black SUV with dark-tinted windows. A man stepped out, tall and graying at the temples, his expression unreadable but eyes sharp and attentive. "I'm Agent Reynolds," he said simply, voice steady and calm. "Please hurry." We scrambled into the SUV, feeling oddly exposed despite its solid construction. Reynolds navigated smoothly through city traffic, eyes constantly scanning mirrors, alert and focused. After nearly an hour, he spoke again quietly. "We're going underground. These people have too much power and too much information. The safest place right now is off the grid." He drove steadily into the countryside, roads growing narrower and more isolated. Eventually, we turned onto a gravel path hidden beneath thick overgrowth, ending at a modest but fortified-looking farmhouse inside. Reynolds quickly checked surveillance systems and alarms. He showed us a hidden panic room, disguised seamlessly behind a bookshelf. "If anyone unauthorized shows up, go here immediately," he instructed firmly. The four of us sat around a weathered wooden table, exhaustion etched deeply in every face. "Who are these people?" Sasha finally asked, voice thin and brittle. "What do they want?" Reynolds sighed heavily, folding his hand slowly. "They're connected to a network that's been operating underground for years. Human trafficking, illegal. Surveillance, blackmail, it's a multi-million-dollar industry. But recently, they've been expanding. Airbnb and similar platforms are just new tools for them." "Then why us?" I whispered, dread pooling coldly in my stomach. "You were easy targets, isolated. Vulnerable, Reynolds explained quietly. But when you found their camera, you became threats. They've never tolerated threats. Martinez clenched. His fist tightly. They took my sister, he said bitterly. Months ago. She was investigating them too. Reynolds nodded sympathetically. I know. I've been tracking these cases independently. The network is massive. Connected politically, economically, and even within law enforcement. I shuddered violently. How can we fight something so big? Reynolds leaned forward earnestly, voice firm. By exposing them publicly. They thrive on secrecy. The moment they're outed, they lose power. Sasha laughed bitterly. They're everywhere. They'll kill us before we can expose anything. Maybe, Reynolds admitted gently. But we have evidence now. I've compiled it for years, waiting for the right moment. With your testimony, we can finally act. I exchanged anxious glances with Sasha and Martinez, fear and uncertainty written plainly across all our faces. What do we have to do? Martinez finally asked, voice low and determined. Give me full statements. Everything you've experienced, Reynolds explained steadily. I have contacts in the media, reputable, untouchable sources. We'll leak the story strategically, make it impossible to bury. The room fell silent, tension crackling like electricity. Finally, I nodded slowly. I'll do whatever it takes. Martinez and Sasha murmured quiet agreement, resolve hardening their expressions. The following days blurred together. Long hours spent recounting every horrific detail to Reynolds, meticulously documenting our experiences. Sleep was scarce, paranoia constant, but determination fueled us forward. Reynolds moved quickly, contacting his sources, carefully crafting the explosive expose. Finally, after days of nerve-wracking preparation, everything was ready. We're going public tomorrow, Reynolds announced grimly one night. The story hits national news at sunrise. I sat silently, heart pounding wildly. This was it, the endgame. Either we succeeded or our lives would be forever in danger that night. I lay awake, staring into darkness, fear and hope warring violently inside me. Suddenly, my burner phone, the new, supposedly secure one Reynolds provided, buzzed softly. Beside me, heart sinking, I checked the screen, dread constricting painfully in my chest. Going public won't stop us. It'll only guarantee your silence forever. I leaped from bed, sprinting desperately to Reynolds. He examined the message gravely, his jaw clenching tightly. They found us again, I whispered, panic rising rapidly. How? Someone in my contacts betrayed us, Reynolds admitted darkly. We have to move immediately. But before we could react, alarms blared violently throughout the house, lights flashing urgently. Security screens displayed multiple figures, approaching rapidly, heavily armed and clearly hostile. They're here, Martinez shouted urgently, rushing to barricade the door. Get to the panic room, Reynolds ordered sharply, grabbing weapons and tossing one to Martinez. Now, we sprinted desperately toward the hidden room, furniture crashing behind us as attackers burst violently into the house. Gunfire erupted, deafening and chaotic. Reynolds shoved us into the panic room, slamming the heavy door shut behind us. We stumbled inside, breath ragged with terror, listening helplessly as the battle raged just outside. Minutes stretched agonizingly, gunfire eventually ceasing. We waited breathlessly, frozen and trembling, listening intently. A soft knock sounded. At the panic room door, "It's Reynolds," a familiar voice called weakly. Martinez cautiously opened the door, weapon drawn protectively. Reynolds stood, injured and bleeding, face pale. "They're gone," he gasped painfully. "But we don't have much time." He limped to the main room, quickly grabbing emergency supplies and a rugged laptop, shoving them into a backpack. "Come on," he urged urgently. "We need to move now." We rushed. Outside, bodies scattered on the ground, attackers neutralized, but we knew more would come. "Where now?" I whispered desperately. Reynolds looked at us grimly, eyes hardened with resolve. "Somewhere nobody expects. Somewhere completely off-grid." We piled hastily into another hidden vehicle, racing desperately away into the dark night. Leaving chaos behind as we drove, Reynolds glanced at me gently. The story goes live tomorrow, he reminded quietly. They can't stop it now. But they'll still come after us, Sasha whispered fearfully. Reynolds nodded gravely. Yes, but this exposure weakens them enormously. People will demand justice. Law enforcement will be forced to act. I leaned back, eyes heavy with exhaustion, heart still racing painfully. Will we ever be safe again? Reynolds was silent, briefly, then answered honestly. Maybe never completely. But now they'll be running too. The car raced onward, darkness, stretching endlessly ahead. We'd made our stand, risked everything to expose them. But our enemies were relentless, powerful, and still out there. And I couldn't shake the terrifying knowledge that our fight was only just beginning. Part 7. Breaking. The silence. We drove for hours into the night, eventually abandoning paved roads entirely. Reynolds navigated us deeper into the wilderness, past towering pines, winding along roads that barely existed. None of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. Dawn broke gently over the horizon, spilling pale gold across the rugged landscape. Reynolds finally pulled over beside a remote cabin, almost hidden among the trees. It was small, sturdy, and utterly isolated, the perfect place to disappear. This is as off-grid as it gets, Reynolds said, exhaustion etched deeply into his features. No phones, no internet. We'll be safe here, at least temporarily. I stepped out slowly, breathing in the fresh, cool air, letting the silence soothe my frayed nerves. For the first time in days, I allowed myself a fleeting moment of hope. We quickly secured the cabin. Reynolds methodically checking locks and surveillance equipment, his movements precise despite his injuries. Martinez stood guard outside, watchful and tense, while Sasha and I attempted to make the interior livable. Exhaustion eventually overtook us, and we collapsed into restless sleep. I woke to the sound of hushed voices. Reynolds and Martinez sat at a small wooden table, gazing intently at the rugged laptop screen. What happened? I asked quietly, heart quickening nervously. Reynolds looked up, relief softening his eyes. The expose is live, it's everywhere. I hurried forward, staring at the screen in disbelief. News headlines flashed dramatically. Massive. Surveillance ring uncovered hidden cameras in air. B&B rentals. Corruption exposed. Police complicity suspected. Victims speak out. We were watched, hunted, silenced. My breath caught sharply. Emotions flooding me. Relief, fear, pride. It's finally out, Martinez whispered, voice thick with emotion. I can't bury this anymore. But even amidst our relief, dread lingered. They wouldn't surrender easily. The powerful network we'd exposed would surely retaliate. Hours passed. Tensely, isolated from the outside world, wondering how society was reacting. Without internet or phones, we could only guess. Then, that night, a distant engine roared softly, approaching steadily. Martinez immediately moved to the window, weapon ready. Reynolds joined him silently, eyes narrowed. A vehicle stopped outside, lights off, engine idling ominously. Stay quiet, Reynolds instructed firmly. I'll handle this. He stepped outside, cautiously, leaving Martinez guarding Sasha and me. Silence stretched painfully. Then soft voices murmured indistinctly, calm and professional. Reynolds returned quickly, visibly relaxed. Media contacts, he explained. Trusted journalists. They're spreading our location internally. Authorities we can rely on are coming. Hope flickered briefly within me. Could we finally be safe? The journalists entered carefully, introducing themselves gently, compassion clear in their expressions. They asked cautious questions, documenting every detail meticulously, promising continued public exposure. Eventually, the journalists departed swiftly, promising imminent official support. But the danger was far from over. 2 tense days passed, uneventfully. Then, suddenly, vehicles surged toward the cabin, siren blaring urgently. Martinez and Reynolds sprang to defensive positions. but quickly lowered weapons, official FBI insignia visible. Agents poured out rapidly, armed and vigilant. A senior officer approached Reynolds directly, nodding respectfully. We have confirmation, several. High-ranking officials arrested, corrupt officers identified. You're safe now. I sank weakly onto the porch steps, tears flooding uncontrollably. Relief surged violently, overwhelming me entirely, but beneath relief simmered lingering uncertainty. Were we truly safe? Could an organization this powerful ever truly be dismantled? Weeks passed, filled with intensive interviews, therapy sessions, and legal proceedings. The case gained global attention, sparking furious public outcry and demands for justice. Airbnb and similar platforms face intense scrutiny, forced to overhaul safety protocols drastically. Eventually, Martinez received news about his sister alive, recovered during raids. Their emotional reunion brought me profound joy, a rare victory amidst relentless struggle. Sasha gradually regained stability, slowly reclaiming her life. Though scars remained deep, I moved carefully through recovery, confronting lingering trauma daily. Reynolds remained steadfastly supportive, guiding me patiently through ongoing challenges. Slowly, cautiously, life began regaining some normalcy, but the darkness wasn't erased entirely. Occasionally, paranoia spiked sharply, panic attacks leaving me breathless, fearful. Though therapy helped, shadows lingered persistently. Months later, while alone at my apartment, my phone buzzed unexpectedly, fear immediately gripping me. Hands shaking, I reluctantly checked the screen. It was Reynolds, sending a simple, reassuring message. Just checking in. You're safe. You're not alone. I smiled softly, relief easing anxiety slightly. Yet, even with reassurances, I couldn't fully silence fear's whisper. I'd seen firsthand how powerful, relentless, and pervasive evil could be. Epilogue. The shadows don't leave easily. It's been 9 months since the cabin. Since the exposed, since everything changed, I live in a new apartment now higher. Floor, reinforced locks, and blackout curtains. It's not that I think someone's watching me anymore. It's that I know they once were, and if it happened once, it can happen again. That knowledge doesn't fade, it just settles into your bones like winter. The headlines stopped after a few months. Other stories took their place. The court hearings wrapped and the trials began. People were sentenced, lives were changed, platforms were sued. But the camera scars, the paranoia, the weight of being hunted for simply renting a weekend escape, that doesn't go away. I still check every mirror, still wave my hand in front of strange smoke detectors, still freeze when my phone buzzes unexpectedly. But I'm healing slowly, and I'm not alone. Reynolds checks in weekly, always short and to the point. He's still deep in advocacy, testifying in court, consulting with safety watchdogs. He refuses media interviews, says the spotlight's never been safe for him. But every so often, I'll see his name in some footnote of a larger reform article. It always makes me smile. Martinez, well, he changed. You could see it in his eyes, even right after the raid. That man carried guilt like armor. He blamed himself for his sister's kidnapping. Even though he rescued her, even though she survived. He still carries it, but they're together now. Living quietly in a small town, he works as a private security consultant. He says he sleeps better these days. Sasha disappeared from the public eye entirely. Last I heard, she moved across the country, started over. I got a postcard from her once, a photo of a mountain lake. The words, breathing again, scribbled across the back. I hope she's happy. I hope she never needs to think about cameras again. As for me, I decided to speak out. I started small anonymous interviews, blog posts, podcasts. Then came the documentary. A team of journalists approached me with respect, transparency, and one simple goal: to give victims their voices back. I agreed, as long as my name was kept private. They filmed in shadows, blurred faces, disguised voices. The first time I watched myself on screen, I shook. But then I received messages, thousands of them. People who'd had similar experiences, survivors Who'd had bad feelings and found things they couldn't explain. I wasn't alone, and neither were they. The impact was real. Laws changed. Platforms implemented mandatory device sweeps and a eye camera detection. Hosts faced stricter regulations. And, more importantly, people started listening. One night, months. Later, I got a call from Reynolds. I hadn't heard his voice in a while. They're trying to rebrand. He said flatly, I didn't need to ask who the remnants of the surveillance network, had scattered, but not died. Some were trying to crawl back under new names, new shell companies, launching rental platforms with shiny interfaces and no oversight. The old tactics, just new wrapping. They'll never stop completely, he told me. But we can make it harder. That word meant more than I realized. We weren't victims anymore. We were watchdogs. I began consulting too quietly, behind the scenes, helping engineers test detection tools, advising legislation drafts, even testifying once via video under a false name. And while the fear never vanished, purpose started to grow in its place. Still, there were silent nights when my building creaked, or a light flickered, or my reflection didn't quite line up and my heart would race. Trauma doesn't disappear. It mutates. It learns your new life and adapts. But so do you. One day, while walking to a bookstore, I noticed a woman staring at a fire alarm in her Airbnb lobby, looking uncertain. I paused. Trust your gut, I said quietly. She turned to me, startled. If something feels off, check. You're not being paranoid. You're being smart. She nodded slowly, then reached for her phone. I smiled and kept walking. Later that night, I got another text from Reynolds. It just said, one less property on the list. Good call. They'd found a new site trying to revive the same surveillance system. The woman had flagged it. The platform had reported it. The property was removed. Progress. Not victory, maybe. But progress. A year after the cabin, the documentary premiered in a small film festival. I didn't attend, but I watched the live stream. The last scene was quiet. A shot of the forest where the cabin once stood, wind brushing softly through the pines. A voiceover said, they thought they could hide in the silence, but we spoke anyway. I cried, not out of pain, not anymore, but out of something else. Survival. We spoke. And we were heard.